Happening now, we'd like to welcome our viewers from across North America and around the world. This is the EdTech Situation Room, episode 378 for August the 5th, 2026. My name is Wes Fryer, and I'm coming to you from Charlotte, North Carolina, where I am a middle school classroom teacher teaching media literacy, ready in about 7 days, I guess, to go back to school. And our kids are going to start something like August 18th. It's always before my birthday, but that's okay. But joining me as always from apparently his lovely virtual cabin with no fireplace, or no fire in the fireplace, but a lovely fireplace. That's not. I'm thinking that's not real. I'm seeing things appear in the background.
Yes,
It's
if I go like that,
EdTech Yoda of the North, Jason Neiffer. It's been a minute, man, like a month since we've been together. Wow.
yes, it's been a long time. Good evening, Dr. Fryer. Good evening, people of Earth. My name is Jason Neiffer. I'm the executive director of Montana Digital Academy. We aren't going back to school for a couple of weeks yet, although a lot of schools in Montana will start up in the next couple of weeks. We have a wide variety of schedules across the state of Montana. But I am happy to be here, and I have been gone for a long time. July was an intense schedule this year. Good news is for both of us. You had some time out too, so I feel less bad about missing some of those weeks. But it's great to be here. A lot going on in the educational technology space. So I'm looking forward for our semi-regular opportunity to debrief about what's going on.
Absolutely. Well, where would you like to start tonight in the world of? Well, I don't know. Do we need to talk about the requisite weather? Yeah, probably. Uh, Fire
We do,
danger.
yeah.
Give me an update on the. It was like 78 today in the evening after a little rain. It has been mild. We're in a cycle of buildups and thunderstorms and rain. We got an inch and a half of rain
Oh
yesterday,
wow,
and
I'm super
so
jealous.
our lakes are not evidently all the way up, but anyway, it's we were in the Midwest for 2 weeks and we were there for the heat dome, and it was kind of brutal. So what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Well, the last 72 hours has been quite pleasant here. I think that the high temperature was in the low 70s. I think it was on Tuesday here. I've been in three different towns the last 72 hours. So, but we are back up to the low 90s for the rest of this week. But there's just a ton of smoke here from Canadian fires. And then you may have seen the disaster in Spokane, Washington, which is about a 3-hour drive from Missoula, Montana. And they had a number of how there was a human caused fire that it took down like 400 structures. I think it was in North
I
Spokane.
did hear
So
about that on NPR a little bit. Yeah.
yeah. So first of all, my heart goes out. I love Spokane. Spokane's a really a cool city. They have a beautiful park system there, and that was kind of the big city when I was a little kid. But in fact, I'm going to be in that area on Monday and Tuesday of next week. But smoke here, so the air's been pretty chewy, as I like to put it, and yeah, low 90s could be a lot worse because we've had a lot of seasons the last 10 years where the upper 90s and lower 100s would stick around for a week or two. So I would take 86, 91, 92, 91 over 99, 102, 106, 102, 99. But yeah, definitely considering how mild the summer was in June and most of July, it's certainly picked back up here.
All right. Well, we sometimes do talk the weather. In fact, I was telling somebody the other day that between your Montana weather and Peggy George's Phoenix weather, we kind of run the gamut here. But this isn't a weather show, contrary to what some may have heard. What are we going to do tonight, Jason?
Well, I mean, I would like it to be a weather show. Actually, I think that would be a lot of fun, as it turns out. But the EdTech Situation Room is a once in a while podcast where we go over the tech news that's happened. Unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, it's been pretty dominated by artificial intelligence lately. Although between screen time debates and artificial intelligence, I think that's sucking up a lot of oxygen in the EdTech room for sure. But you can see our links of the stuff we talk about and don't get to. We almost never get to all of our links, and I would like to show a demo off tonight too, if we get to that point. I've got some pretty wild stuff actually, Dr. Fryer, to show you. But you can find all that information at edtechsr.com, and also our Substack, where Dr. Fryer releases episodes there. So please follow us there. But tonight, our topics, one of them is education, which I think is delightful, privacy and cybersecurity, and then a list of AI stuff that we will, I'm sure, get sucked into a rabbit hole. Dr. Fryer, as has been our recent tradition, you have been the link champion again this week. Where shall we start?
Well, first of all, full disclosure: the reason there's an education title is because I use Flipboard a lot. I've used it since probably 2007, something ridiculous. And so you can get an RSS feed off that. And so I was trying to, and it did save me some time to tell my Claude project for link formatting, hey, here's grab the RSS feed and I want you to format these links. And it did. And then I said, put them in categories like we usually do, whatever. So anyway, that was Claude's education category. Let's start with the Axios article from August 1st, Digital World Disruption. Holy cow. We are in the midst, thanks to AI, not just AI overviews, but just artificial intelligence search, in a fundamental reconfiguration of the digital world, which has huge implications for us as teachers and educators, but for every single citizen in the world and for every single publisher, especially those that have been relying upon Google to have search engine optimization, SEO, and then, attract their traffic. So this is an Axios article by Jim Vandehei from August, well, actually, I guess it's July 31st. And he gives the data about the sharp declines of Google search traffic to publishers, falling 34% over the past year, but that's regressive. He says over the past 2 years, small publishers have lost 60% of referrals from search, medium publishers 47%. LinkedIn, Reddit, other massive platforms are getting jammed with AI creative content. We are in the midst of, we're like in the very leading edge of a tsunami of AI slop and AI created content. Now, I say this to you as someone who uses AI basically every day. And I really, really think that these tools can be wonderfully powerful. My ability to find things, to be able to share ideas, to be able to deepen my thinking, is dramatically enhanced by artificial intelligence. But the spread of disinformation and misinformation, just slop, just garbage. And it can be engaging garbage. But I don't think I can overstate what a ginormous change this is, because for the last 20-something years, and you can help me with the exact date, we have Googled stuff and we have talked to Google to find things, and we've talked to students finally about here's how we have search literacy. That has changed. And so I absolutely think that as we start this new school year here in the Northern Hemisphere, I'm here in North Carolina, I'm going to be talking about this. I'm going to be sharing with my students ways to effectively use their AI tools to search. And I got to say, I love it. Being able to iteratively go back and forth with the chatbot, it is life-changing, but I don't think that schools are necessarily ready, and I'm not sure how many people realize what a big deal it is.
Couldn't agree more, Dr. Fryer. And I too am someone that uses AI every day, and I have mixed feelings. I would like to talk about the Hank Green article I put into the notes a little bit later, because I think that's an important kind of inflection point of all the things we're talking about here. But yeah, it's getting really bad, and I think, and I want to say this is something I actually stole from you, Dr. Fryer, but it like 53% of all internet content is now AI generated. I do think that there is a vast difference between unedited, uncritically read slop and stuff that is lightly edited or aggressively human edited AI stuff. I think the quality matters more than the source for most of the content that we're talking about, right? I remember a big controversy. I can't remember if this was pre or post pandemic, but when newspapers were starting to experiment with generated text well before GPT 3.5 was released, and they were talking about like basically baseball scores, right? Could AI do baseball scores? And it's it's really just statistical reporting, right? Very little well, no journalism. It's just literally statistical data that's being reported. And there was a lot of controversy around that because there are people who are sports writers that are compiling that. Other than that, but that in my mind, that's relatively low form of journalism, right? I'm not saying that that the actual sports stories, it's a-okay to put generated content. I think the quality matters. And that said, though, like, I do think that a lot of the slop that I'm noticing very regularly now is obviously bad, right? Like, it's not even pretend bad. Like, it's just truly terrible quality.
And even when folks know that it's AI, it's not like as humans, we're all just saying, oh, it's AI, I don't want to see this. There's a lot of, I mean, there's some pretty remarkable AI content, and I'm not going to go into depth with it. But if you haven't seen some of the Iranian propaganda around the war, you need to. And we did a webinar in the spring for the Media Education Lab about that. I can drop that link in. It's fascinating though because there's these tags that say AI. You're supposed to say if you've used AI and whatever for Facebook posts or other social media platforms, you're supposed to say this is AI. But it's not like that. I don't know. People are not just filtering it out because it's AI. I want more control over my news feed, and I would love to be able to, for instance, just see golden retriever videos that are real and not fake ones. And some of the fake ones are funny and they're cute, but I think we should be able to opt out of AI slop. And we're not living in that world right now. At least I'm not.
Yeah, and well, and it's funny too. This relates really well into an article that I remembered I wanted to put in here, didn't, so I just dropped it in. This idea that you can't turn it off, I think, is a really important one, right? And a good example of this is that I think that short form video has become a much larger problem in the last year because every platform has short form video now. And I heard a really great argument, and I really do wish I could remember who said this, but the idea was that I don't want to watch short form video on YouTube. That's not my preferred format. But it just gets rubbed right in your face, right? And I do think that there's something very, at least like extra engaging to it, if not straight up addicting, right? Like I think that's almost certainly true. And I've noticed now that the parents in my life, my mom-in-law, my father-in-law, more my father-in-law than my mother-in-law, but he watches a lot of YouTube anyways, and kind of reminds me of you, Dr. Fryer. He's always good for a NASA video, right? And so he watches a lot of aviation content on short form video, and I've seen scroll for like 45 minutes, right? And would never download TikTok to save his life, right? Like that's not, it's it, but that format, because of its success, in keeping people engaged is for better or for worse, is everywhere. And I think that the fact that you can't turn it off, right? And this would be really easy for you to put a toggle in settings.
There are some settings, and I should probably do a post about this in Facebook that can limit whether you go straight to Reels because I helped my spouse do that this summer because we've had this conversation. Oh, overall, I think that we need to work, and I'm doing a session. Oh, I should do this. The Civics of Technology conference starts tomorrow. It's 2 days. It's free. Go to civicsoftechnology.org, and it's free on Zoom. I'm doing a session on your feed, your algorithm, your feed, something like that. I just think we've got to work on taking control of our feeds, because having tech oligarchs in charge of the feeds is not good for a lot of different reasons. And we can have over our feeds when we are using open tools, and when people aren't just sharing inside proprietary platforms. And you mentioned vertical video, Jason. What a coincidence. Because this past Monday for the Media Education Lab, our topic was vertical video literacy. And I was overjoyed. Hall Davidson actually joined our webinar. Oh my gosh, we had over 20 folks. And Hall has been with, well, he's with Discovery Ed, but he's been with the California State Student Media Festival forever. I think it's like 60 years old or something crazy like that. So a blast from the past. But that is absolutely right. And I don't, to give a fast summary, I don't think we should just capitulate to vertical video and reels and shorts and say, oh, everything's got to be a short and it's all got to be entertaining. No. But the power of this medium, because I'm in the boat of a few short years ago with iPad Media Camp. I mean, I was basically preaching, not literally, but saying that it's a sin to create a vertical video, right? Horizontal video. There's a whole, like, yeah, yeah, I know. I mean, so I've changed my ways, but we can't give up on reading. We shouldn't give up on writing. We shouldn't give up on long form video and long form documentary. But to ignore short form video today
Yeah.
is to almost put your head in the sand and pretend like it's 1950, and it's not.
Yeah. I would also add to, I think very importantly, that it, neither Dr. Fryer or I have ever been tech absolutists, right? And I want to mention that both of our lines change and shift a little bit, but it really is about balance, right? And if a form is extra addicting for whatever reason, I think we have to have at least a conversation about it, right? TikTok isn't going to go away. But a lot of conversations right now about screen time limitations and bans across the United States. Like, I still think that the most we could do, that rather than kind of a top down approach, is encourage schools to take the issue more seriously with their communities, right? One thing I've always admired about you, Dr. Fryer, is that you always walk the walk. And what I mean by that is that you are working in schools and bringing parents in and helping parents understand the technology, and that's something that I think is a really important concept, because I think a lot of parents don't know how to turn on the safety features of their phones and don't know how to turn on parental management of kid phones. And I wouldn't allow my kid access to vertical video more than 20 minutes a day, right? A scrollable video like that that's short form is terribly engaging, right? And I do think that, and I'm particularly concerned about YouTube, because I feel like that. I mean, I know that they're maximizing engagement and profit. I get that. That's the way capitalism works. But the bottom line is I also think that they're getting rid of their own business here, right? I can't imagine that people are watching YouTube videos with the traditional YouTube video vibe on top of the short form videos, right? And so, I think that it monopolizes their own product.
YouTube is
I'm sorry,
doing
it
really
cannibalizes.
Yeah, YouTube is doing really well, and we don't have the article in tonight's show, but we have talked about this in the past, and the ways in which YouTube has really focused on kind of lean back watching, and with Roku and with Apple TV and with the television. They've got some super smart folks working for them, and they've done well, and their profits have done well too. So I would be interested in that, as I am teaching students to create media and web pages, for instance, for a variety of purposes. I mean, mobile first has been a mantra to say probably over half of the folks that are going to look at this page are going to do that on a phone looking at a vertical format, not at a big monitor like I'm looking at right now in my home office. So literacy, man, literacy is changing, and the ways in which folks get news, the ways in which we form our perceptions about the world. Are we hopeless? Do we have hope? Do I know what's going on in my community? Holy cow, I should put the citation in, but in a podcast I listened to this week, they were saying that 3/4 of the local journalists are now not employed. Like, we have lost so many local journalists, and there's so many small communities that there's a big corporation that owns whatever local news, whether it's a radio station or a newspaper, that's still left, and they're just not even covering much beyond high school sports. And so I think this is a huge crisis in our country. And I think that educators have a role to play. I am going to be teaching broadcast media for our middle school kids this year. Really excited about that. Going to have one section in the fall and two in the spring, and they're for pretty full. It's a real popular class, and I'm excited about that. But I really think that the dynamic change, and back to this Axios article, I don't know, man. It's hard to say this is the biggest year of change we've ever faced. But I mean, Google is changed fundamentally, and kids are not just Googling stuff, and neither are teachers. And I know that internet research and writing papers that are based on research, like, this is something we have done in school forever, as far as I know, since we've been able to have access to texts of some form. And so I just think it's a really big deal. And if to all the teachers out there, if you have not found some good professional development around AI search, I would encourage you to find that and to ask for that in your school, because grappling with what we now have when we go to google.com, but also, where are people going now? They're going to ChatGPT, they're going to Claude, they're going right to Gemini. And I personally find it better. It is a better experience for me, but it is fraught with many, many issues.
Yeah. Wonderful segue into the other article related to this that I want to share. Last month, Common Sense Media, which is an organization I know a lot of folks at, they are truly in this space for the right reason, and I don't in any way want to suggest what I'm about to suggest is criticism. I just have a plus thing to add at the end of it. But they have an AI institute now, and which I'm glad. I think they're going to be a good clarion voice in seeing this meaningfully. But they released an article on July 15th. About how terrible Google AI search is for kids. And it's interesting that, there is something about short-circuiting learning. I agree with that. That's kind of where my plus is at. But more importantly, they tried they tried to utilize the search terms like a student might, and it was actually kind of gross what it came up with when students were reporting clear mental health signs instead of offering them help. It said that you're clearly in grind mode activated, and students would say things like, I feel better after I vomit. And the AI over replied, it was completely normal, explained the biology, no recognition of the behavior could be a sign of an eating disorder, right? Really, truly terrible. And I agree. And you can't turn it off, right? Like, that's the problem. My understanding is there's some hacky ways that you can use a filter with you're at school to help at least minimize the access to it, but truly turning it off apparently is not an option. But even if it is an option for schools, right, I do think that parents should have an option here, and I should have an option here, right? Like, if I want the traditional Google search, then I should be able to turn that completely off under all circumstances.
realize something that I don't think I've ever certainly mentioned as a geek of the week. Are you familiar with startpage.com, Jason? Have you used this?
I have not used it, but I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Okay, so for the last 6+ months, I have been using the Vivaldi web browser, which is a European privacy first web browser on both my laptop computer and on my iPhone and my iPad. Now, to be clear, at school we have to use the Chrome browser primarily, and I'm still using Chrome, and I still use it sometimes on my desktop because it's really nice with all the profiles. But the Vivaldi web browser defaults to startpage.com, and it is actually doing a Google search. And I don't know that I've configured this, but it doesn't include an AI overview. So I think that would be an interesting thing to potentially, teach students and to teach teachers as well, because I think we need a transition. And many teachers are familiar with the literacies around searching the Google, how is it, and search engines as they were in terms of looking at the results. Hey, look, there's a promoted ad. Hey, let's scroll down to where the search engine optimization SEO recommended links are, and then let's scan through these. And anyway, managing that, it's so different to have an AI just tell you this is the answer. And while you sometimes now, and I really love especially Claude, I'm using Claude the most, it has links, and then you can ask it for more of those links in terms of how it got its information. There's a lot of things that you probably need to do as you interact with it, and it's just so different. It is. So anyway, startpage.com, it's a private search. So this is also interesting, right? Because schools, and I was an IT director for 4 years, track all kinds of things. And many times that's important because, for instance, if there's searches that a young student is doing about self-harm or something like that, we had some different tools and things in place to be able to know about that and then be able to possibly have an intervention and get our school counselors involved and things like that. I don't know. Startpage is a privacy search, and it's not going to allow for that kind of thing. So it may or may not be something that's even available on your school network. But I think it's if you want the traditional Google search, go to startpage.com. I think you can get that at least just as an individual. Mileage may vary depending upon where you're connecting your network and how stuff's configured. Oh, you're muted, Jason. Yep, you're muted. Yeah. Unmute. There you go.
There we go. So I agree with Common Sense Media. I don't want in any way suggest that I did, or that I don't agree with the notion, but there is one step short that I wish they would have talked about, which is we can't let the AI search problem obscure the fact that our students weren't very good at Google searching in the first place, right? And that's the part.
Or teachers, yeah.
Yeah, that's the part that I want to make sure we're talking about, right? And even if we could somehow block AI search everywhere, right? The bottom line is that we have ample evidence that students are quite terrible at searching, and we let them leave the K-12 system to go to college without basic search literacy, right? And we've talked about this probably 25 times in the 11-year history of our podcast now. But the bottom line is that kids still treat search as a capture, right? That I'm going to go find some links, right? Where instead it should be a critical thinking exercise, and that's the reason why kids don't go past the first page. They're looking for bulk rather than quality, and they're not evaluating the sources very well, and that's a real problem. Right. And so, media literacy is well, I mean, we talk about the problem with cognitive debt. Let's talk about a problem with the training debt that exists right now, right? Part of why I think it's been difficult for a lot of us to make meaningful progress on AI is that in a lot of cases, our students don't have the tech or media savvy to engage in those basic conversations, which makes AI that much more complicated.
And I think there's a lot of schools that have yet to decide whether they're going to allow teachers and students to use AI, and if so, how, and and how to make that more nuanced than just binary on and off. I mean, it's just it is a very challenging day that we're in. There's some weird
Yeah.
background sounds. I don't know what that is. It's like a bleed
Is it
over.
a buzz? It's a bleed over.
Almost sounds like a bleed over from some other show. It's weird.
Oh, okay, that's really interesting.
Mm,
Um,
haven't had
so
that before.
yeah, so and again, uh, um, I don't want to suggest in any way, shape, or form, right, that common sense media is wrong. In fact, if anything, I'm sure you could go to their website and find 200 pro AI literacy articles, right? But I do think that in some of our discussion about AI, we shouldn't simply make it just AI's bad, but also if we get past that, the kids are terrible at searching in the first place.
And I will make this point because I think this is true. I think that search with AI can be better
Yeah,
if you're iterative and if you are really working it. And what I mean by working it is you're not just saying, tell me about Finland, and that's the extent of your prompt, but you really dig into questions that you're curious about, you want to know the answers to, you ask for sources, you ask for all kinds of things, right? It's incredible. I mean, using a frontier model AI chatbot as a personal assistant and a search companion is just incredible in terms of transformative power to surface ideas, links, resources, tools, whole threads of inquiry that you and I might not come across.
yeah,
I get excited with the transformative uses of technology that are very constructive, that are very positive. But back to some of the stuff you were talking about, that gets back to this idea of not using a chatbot as a counselor, right? And there's a
yeah,
tendency for us to do that. And I absolutely think that someone at every school, and it needs to really be more than one person, needs to be talking to students about this because there have been some really significant bad situations happening with chatbots, and it's kind of a natural thing. It's a chatbot, so it is being used as a personal counselor. It's weird. Are you hearing this other background noise at all, Jason?
I am not.
I wonder what that is. That is so odd. Well, can you talk to us about Hank Green? Because I'm excited. I've saw these articles, but I didn't read them.
Oof. Yeah. This is a rabbit hole, so I'll just prepare you with that right now. So Hank Green, very popular YouTuber, and I've heard him referred to a lot as a science communicator. He and his brother John have been making videos for 20 years. He's a Missoula, Montana native, which is something that is part of the reason why I track him. I think I've met the guy like two times. I think we have some mutual friends. I would love to be the guy's friend. But a couple of weeks ago, actually, I think this was in maybe early July. He did an Ask Hank a session where he takes questions live from the audience or maybe they're pre-format questions. Whatever it is that he apparently uttered a phrase that people claimed was AI generated. He has subsequently said that he looked at his script and it didn't appear in a script at all, so it was ad-libbed, but it was something like, "I really appreciate the pushback," which I get that, right? That's something I hear a lot from all these models when I tell it that it's full of crap. And so from there, go ahead, Wes.
He was accused then of basically using the AI script. Was that the controversy? Because he used a
Well, that
phrase that sounded like a chatbot?
yes, but more importantly, um, uh, like that they said that his stuff has been increasingly AI generated, and so he went on X a couple of days later and said that yes, I do use AI quite a bit in my work, and that he had faced a lot of deadlines recently, and he was overcommitted, and he feels like that he made a mistake here, and then more importantly that he said, "I think that I have an unhealthy relationship with AI, and that the dopamine hit is not good for me, and the dopamine hit's not good for humanity." And I thought that took some some guts to say exactly that, right? Um, and but like the world. Oh, and then he also announced he was going to take a step back from his channels for a little while here. Um, uh, 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 and then everyone started criticizing the guy, right? Is what I'm trying to say.
Oh,
And leave it to um, um, leave it to creators to turn on themselves, right? But I've been very disturbed about the lack of nuance, and I think the holier than thou. Like how dare Hank Green, and Hank Green is AI slop, and then of course the politics get involved. Hank Green is woke, internet slop, blah 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 blah. And Hank did something I thought was very admirable. He admitted to it, right? And I think there's two issues here for me. I do want to talk about the dopamine hit problem, and that there you can have an unhealthy relationship with AI, but the hypocrisy on the part of a lot of creators, and I am not a I why am I having problems talking today? The uh,
this will all be edited out by our Descript AI tool, folks.
yeah, I'm sure. Yeah,
For
actually,
real, I'm not
yeah,
kidding.
well, good
If
because
you're seeing the live version, it's not, but yeah, we'll
yeah.
edit it.
So, I the hypocrisy of, and I particularly was disgusted with, like low, like wannabe folks on TikTok that are kind of wannabe influencers that, I used to love Hank Green, and then it's clearly, this and that, and and you're on TikTok, right? Like, do you realize that you're on a platform? And then one creator in particular that I did leave. I have a relatively anonymous account on the TikTok, but the idea here is that I said, do you understand you're platformed on TikTok? And she was criticizing Hank for being that AI changes your mind about things and it rots your brain. And I'm like, you are platform on a logarithmic social media system that also is trying to nudge you to something, maybe more engagement, maybe pro PRC this or whatever, right? The point is that we have a lot of evidence that TikTok knows the problems with their platform and they're doing nothing about it. And that to me is very disturbing because I also find a number of really, 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 I think problematic lines that people draw, not understanding that the internet is full, I think, of problematic engagement pieces. And so I'll stop there. That's my first concern is the hypocrisy. Dr. Fryer, your thoughts, kind sir?
I think it can be helpful to sometimes think of a metaphor or a comparison, and sometimes a substitution. So maybe we can substitute the word reading. Reading can lead you all kinds of places. It can lead you into some terrible rabbit holes. It can cause you to be radicalized as an extremist. Um, but it can also be wonderful. It can open up your mind to beautiful ideas and transformative philosophies of living and to health and all sorts of things. And so your point about nuance is really important. And this is important for the classroom too. Yes, we can have an on-off approach to AI. And we do have a number of schools. I've even heard of some law schools now, I think this year, maybe just for first year students, maybe it's for all of them. I kind of think Berkeley is like the first year, there's like no AI at all. And then I think maybe you can use it later. But there's a bunch of folks who will see AI in this way that it's on or off. And look, I'm a current middle school classroom teacher. I fully understand how it can be important to have students close the lid of their laptop or turn off their iPad and put it in their backpack or face down and let's engage without technology. There's a time and a place for that. But there is so much nuance. For instance, with reading, okay? that if we're going to just try and condemn reading, that's really an ignorant thing to say. And I think the same thing is true of artificial intelligence as well, right? I actually applied for some seminary classes. It's a limited enrollment, but I'm going to take a couple classes, hopefully at least one class this fall. And, in my application, I had to answer some essays, and I just wrote them in Google Docs. And of course it talked about, not using a generative AI tool, but it basically said if you're using spell check or Grammarly type stuff or whatever, it's okay. I mean, that's some nuance, right? You have algorithms, and those are not generative AI in the sense of, here, answer this essay question for me, but they are a technological assist in the writing process. So I just think it's really important that we don't have a binary approach to artificial intelligence where we just say AI bad or AI good. I mean, are you saying that about reading? Hopefully not. On balance, reading is freaking fantastic. Are there things that you can find at the library, at a bookstore, online that are going to lead to some bad places? Yeah, of course there are. But I think that there's a real tendency, and I think the online environment feeds into this in our attention economy and everything, clickbait and rage bait and all this, where people perhaps find more likes and attention when they take a really strong binary approach. And I don't think that kind of approach is constructive and healthy or realistic. It's just not a good way to look at something like artificial intelligence.
I couldn't agree more. And I I understand we're asking for nuanced thinking in the era that doesn't reward nuance. So I want to be really clear, yeah, that these discussions require. I would imagine, we're not going to come up with anything anytime soon of a clear line for all these things, right? And to be really honest with you, I'm not even sure if we fully know where the the clean lines are for technology in general in learning, right?
We
You
are
know,
just building the plane as we fly it.
well,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Am I
and
saying? Yeah.
yeah, and Dr. Fryer and I tend to lean on at least the hopeful side of this, right? Like, Wes, one of the things I've always appreciated about your advocacy is you spent the last 25 years saying that we have to empower students with the ability to create media, right? It's been a core of the way you've approached education, and I agree, right? Now, that same power, of course, comes with both responsibility and also makes the world kind of a harder place sometimes because platforms are a struggle to police the content on them, right? My understanding, I need to read the book, but there was an author on Friday's hard fork release that used to work at Google. It's a real kind of maybe a bit of an autobiography, but talked about her time at Google, and the she talked about how that the one of the safety teams at Google, the ones that have to watch YouTube videos to find the problematic stuff, and saw just terrible things, 8 hours a day of just terrible things.
Oh yeah.
And she said that one of the ways we knew that people were struggling is when the bosses would bring in puppies to work for departments that had hard jobs. Right, that's problematic. That's a sense of that having these platforms available to easily get to gazillions of viewers are quite problematic.
Please, everyone, put Karen Howe's book, Empire of AI, on your reading list because the part of that book where she talks about a lot of workers in Kenya, which of course is a predominantly English speaking country, and the horrific trauma that thousands of Kenyans were subjected to in training these AI models. I think I don't know if this is the right analogy or not, but the beef industry is not a real wonderful, let's hug everyone and sing kumbaya environment. I have not toured a slaughterhouse. I know people who have. It is not pretty. And AI has a very ugly underbelly in terms of the ways that training models have happened. And to your point, we need to be aware of this. And I mean, some people are going to hear that and also say, well, like, okay, I'm never eating any meat. I mean, and people have that ethical view. And some people are saying the same thing about AI because these AI models have been created in ways that many people would say are unethical. Therefore, I'm not going to use them at all, and I boycott all of them. I think it's important to respect that. And if people want to do that, this is an imperfect analogy, but when cars introduced, there's a great podcast called The War Against Cars, I think, and it tells this amazing history. It was really dangerous. Cars weren't regulated, there weren't any seatbelts, they went really fast, there were a lot of horses and buggies on the road. And if people then wanted to stick with the horse and the buggy, I think that was fine. Let them do that. And I think that we actually need to respect students. This may be a little more for like high school and college age and adult learners, because I don't know many of my middle schoolers are going to come into class like, I'm opposed to the use of AI tools at all. Maybe they will because their parents have also influenced them. But I think that's something we should respect. But for myself as an educator, I'm not going to completely ignore and not utilize these tools at all. But it's really important to know about that trauma and to acknowledge that and to also advocate that we don't do that because that trauma is real.
Absolutely, right. And I've been talking. One of my lines that I've been using when talking with teachers lately is that if you hate AI, I think you should talk to students about that. Not that you hate AI, but engage in a conversation about why, right? You can hate data centers if you like. I wouldn't want one in my community either. We do need data centers to run a lot of the technology, and right now AI is a relatively small part of those data centers. That is projected to change over time for sure. But I also don't want to suggest that, and in fact, people shouldn't suggest that AI is the problem here, right? Because we're using a ton of data center energy all the time. But, right, that's a conversation we should be having in our communities, right? And I think everything's fair here. If you're on TikTok talking about that it's rotting your brain and we can't trust people because they're being influenced by AI. TikTok is attempting to influence you, right? Your video ended up on my For You page because it's attempting to give me something that keeps me engaged in the app, right? That's undeniable, and I think we need to be just very thoughtful here. I was thinking the other day, Wes, that we haven't mentioned the tech correction lately, but that's something you and I talked about. What was it, 10 years ago, right? That there's going to be a pushback on tech. Well, it's gotten more significant, right? Yeah, I'm starting to hear that cross stuff now too, but that's weird.
Well, I was playing the hard fork, so I should have muted myself. That was me. Sorry.
Yeah. By the way, really good episode of Hard Fork, but I think it's complicated, but I think we have to embrace the complexity.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for alerting us to the Hank Green stuff. This is I'm actually, Jason, I've asked my wife, and she'll be a first guest. I'm going to start a podcast series this fall on my Speed of Creativity podcast that I've been doing since 2005. And it's going to be called Trusted Voices. And it's going to challenge guests to share 5 different voices that they consider to be valuable and trustworthy. And then a specific episode of a podcast, a video, a
That's
book,
cool.
whatever. And we do this for each other and we share it out with other people, is we are aware of different things in the media universe, and we each go to different sites and things like that to find our links, but it's exceptionally valuable to filter for each other, especially when you're with somebody who you respect and you like their ideas, and you're interested in a lot of the same things. It's very valuable. So I appreciate you highlighting that, because I do love watching Hank Green videos and his brother and Crash Course. I think I might try to actually make my own Wikipedia version of their Crash Course, because it's getting to be a little bit dated, and I wonder about that with some of these videos and things like, let's go back to 2017, and the kids are Anyway,
Yep.
but the and because influencers, right? In fact, here's a freebie. I'll give this away to everybody. If you'd like to do an excellent program at school this year, try, invite a panel of students, probably high school students or older middle school, but it could be younger students too. Have them share their trusted voices. What influencers are they listening to, and would they share an example link to a video, a short, a reel that they would consider to be valuable? It is so insightful because we are in this wild west of pollution, fractured media, but it's also really good, right? There's a lot of folks that have marginalized voices, marginalized groups, things that we haven't been able to
Yep.
listen to before, and there's an exceptional opportunity to be able to listen to those folks and be influenced by them. Holy cow, Jason, is that right? Have we been talking for 50 minutes?
Yes, I just noticed
That's
that too. So,
crazy. It seems like we just started. Oh my gosh.
um, man,
Oh,
we need to go back to once a week. There are a couple things that I want to make sure and highlight. Next time, I have a an amazing demo to show regarding Claude.
why
And
don't you do it? If you want to do it, I
okay,
say do it. Let's do
okay.
it.
Well, then here we go. Let me start with actually beforehand. If you have not seen this, listeners, or you, Dr. Fryer, for that matter, two things to know. First, ChatGPT for Teachers still exists, right? And you can get a free pro account from them. It's now for 2 years. They've extended the free account till 2027, and I would guess that they may continue that for a while. But the thing that happened a couple of weeks ago is there's also now Claude for Teachers that gives you a free pro account for 1 year. And the reason why that's interesting is because this functionality exists elsewhere now, but you get access to Claude Cowork, which I think is an incredibly powerful platform. So those are available. You just need to prove that you're a teacher, and you get access to that. But I've been using, Claude Cowork for the better part of 6 months when it was kind of universally released. I had experimented about that much with Claude Code as a platform to do some of this kind of co-work stuff, right? But then they just wrapped it into their desktop app, and that makes it different. But I wanted to show off. I had been thinking about this demo for actually a very long time, a couple of weeks before I finally had the time.
A long
um,
time in the internet
yeah,
world.
there was months and months and months of Henry ahead of time. But I want to show here. Give me 1 second. I want to show off this kind of wild demo. And I think it proves really well. And in fact, one of the things that we've started talking about a little bit at the Frontier Learning Lab the couple of weeks is that we've actually come up with a couple of models that we really like about changing the discourse a little bit around that instead of human and hopefully these slides load, otherwise there ain't going to be no demo. But the we like human in the loop as a good starting point, right? I think that was Ethan Mollick that coined that initially a couple of years ago. I would also say that I'm really excited about Professor Mollick's book coming out this fall because I'd like to hear what he has to say about it. But this idea of co-work has really kind of captured, I think, our imagination, which is that was something that co-intelligence was the name of his first book. But the thing that I want to show off is an example of something that I don't think is in any way problematic, right? From the standpoint of trading away your mental acuity or trading in your critical thinking or anything. And part of that is related to, I'm going to show off here a screen share, and I'm going to allow, and I'm going to share the entire screen, and it's going to be my wide monitor. So there it is. So, you know, human in the loop is really important, but it's actually kind of a hands-off piece, right? Because basically you're just a cog in that like cycle of AI. It's not a bad thing. It's the minimum we should be shooting for when we use AI. But I think that there's a better way to do this that is more about human in the center than it is human in the loop, right? So how do we place ourselves firmly in the middle of the AI tools and not hold ourselves at a distance. And so I think there are four examples of things that are way less problematic than other things in regards to giving AI a shot to do some of the hard work here, right? So the first thing is, what can we offload that has nothing to do with your expertise, right? And the example I always use about this is travel paperwork,
And
right?
you can go to present mode if you want. It'll make it bigger on,
Oh, okay,
especially
yeah.
our vertical. We got a vertical version.
Thank you.
Yeah.
As an example of this, right, travel paperwork is the bane of my existence, and it requires a lot of fussiness because of the processes that have been developed for us at the university to do so. And if I can push that off to AI, it would make my life objectively better, right? And my expertise is not required to gather and send receipts, right? Period. End of story, right? My guess is that the typical thought a worker slash teacher slash administrator slash librarian slash paraprofessional has plenty of things on our desk that does not require any of your expertise. A second way to look at it is what is not happening right now because your time schedule setup circumstance will never get to that task, right? The example I use quite frequently is teachers that are using good setup for learning, like using formative for assessment, for example, but don't have the time to do the nuanced analysis of assessment data to change instruction in real time, right? So exit tickets are a good example of this. If you are an aggressive user of exit tickets, to do that right, you actually need to spend a bit of time each time you do it analyzing the data and maybe looking at trends over time. If AI can help us spot trends in that data that we otherwise wouldn't have had the wherewithal to spot, that seems pretty legit to me. Third, we have to be able to keep humans at the center of the relationships that must stay human, right? There are certain people, I mean, right now, you can set up with Google Workspace Studio, which is available in Gemini enabled Google Apps for Education accounts, right? You can literally have it write emails for you. Like it'll go through your email every day and sniff out emails and write responses for you. That's available right now. And in fact, next time, I'd love to show off a little bit about the work that I've been doing in Workspace Studio because I've been helping it manage my email as of late. But I would never write a concerned parent with an AI generated and sent email. I may use it to help me write an email, but I'm never going to automate that because that needs to be human centered pieces, right? And the last thing is, there's so much information for classroom teachers, administrators, all of us in education it's not quite technical documentation, but think about all of the information that you get at a conference or a professional development training that is in one ear and right out the other, even if you have the handouts, because putting together, 25 years of random experiences you've had in the space, it's difficult even for the best memories among us to pull all those things together. So that's the four ways to look at AI in my mind, in human-centered AI introductions. Actually, okay. This is the demo I want to show. This is Claude Cowork, right? Which, again, educators get for free for a year. And I suspect that maybe actually they might extend that longer. But it is an incredibly powerful model that can actually organize and read files on your desktop, right? So let me show you an example of this. The scenario is that this stuff doesn't matter. The scenario is not a real scenario, right? But let's pretend for a moment that I've been called back into classroom service, right? The crusty old veteran is back. And this is from my last year of teaching. I have gained some gray since that time period. This is me teaching AP European History, one of my favorite classes to teach. And I'm demonstrating what a culotte is because we were talking about the French Revolution. And so there I am. And the scenario is that I've been asked by a local high school to teach AP European history for 1 year, so they don't have to hire a whole full-time teacher, right? It's just me teaching the one section. Would love to do that. I would love to have that opportunity. But it's been 16 years since I last taught this class, and I took this class very seriously. A lot of prep information. So the scenario is that I have downloaded, and this is true, in my Dropbox, which I'm still paying for, and I'm not entirely sure why, my old AP European history files, right? And so I have created a folder on my desktop about old AP European history files, and I have pressed Claude Cowork into service. Good day. I'm considering entering the classroom this fall again to teach AP European history, a class I love teaching. This folder contains a random mishmash of everything I could find on my old Dropbox question mark. I made fun of myself account. I also included the text I will likely use. So I took a screenshot of the table of contents of the text that I would have, something that would be adopted in 2026, right? And so I found a table of contents on a publisher website and gave it that. Some great advice I received 20 years ago when I started teaching this class was that, even if you perceive yourself to be a super scholarly teacher and will say things like, I would never use the textbook table of contents to organize my class. She told us, even if you're really smug like that, that's a stupid waste of your time. Don't fight your textbook, right? It's a critical resource. It has to be a part of the class because you're teaching that kind of text-driven analysis. So don't do that. So I'm giving it my table of contents. Please organize all my materials in this folder by chapters in the textbook as initial organization. Ask me questions until you're 98% sure you can do this at an expert level. Ask questions one by one, giving me options when you can. Right? So I've now pressed go. And by the clock is on. I'll tell you how long this whole thing took when I'm done. So first thing is, let me list where what's in the folder first. Let me check the correct path for your workspace folder. Good. I can see the folder. Let me explore the contents more thoroughly. Good. Now I can see this. Now I've looked at that. Now I've seen this. I see you have a textbook resources Kagan folder. Kagan is not the table of contents I shared. Kagan's the old textbook I used 16 years ago, right? And I'm talking in one air mode, and I'm choking on my own spit. 1 second.
That's all right. But you have a beverage, and that's good. You're prepared.
So it notices this, and says, before I proceed, I need to ask some clarifying questions. The first one is, you mentioned Kagan in your folder structure. Is that the book you're using, or is it another book? And so I say, no. You need to look at the table of contents in the root folder. Let me find that. Let me check the screenshot. Perfect. I can see that it is AP or a History of Western Society for the AP European History course, the 14th edition in 2024. Now I have created folders for divided into 4 periods. Question 2, what is the folder structure you want? I think I choose the the A version of its option. Next, how should I handle materials that span multiple chapters? And I say that it's a suggestion about place it in the primary chapter. A is best, but I'd also like you to create an index of every file in the main folder, please, broken down by chapter. Excellent. That's clear. Now it asks me, what should I do with materials that doesn't fit neatly into a chapter? My preference is that it creates auxiliary folders, much like a textbook might choose to do. And then for the master index you want, what format do you want it in? Do you want an Excel spreadsheet? Do you want a markdown file? I say, please create both. And I also tell it that please rename the files for clarity. And the reason why is because I used to be a serial terrible file namer, right? The number of files in this a set of folders I downloaded from Dropbox that were literally called just stuff was shocking to me, right? Sometimes I would call it Renaissance stuff, right? So at least I had that. It also made fun of me at one point because of the number of things I rewrote, probably because I couldn't find the test from last year because it was labeled stuff, right? So I needed to rewrite those file names for me. Taking a breath. Okay, so I answer that question, right? And it says, excellent. I am now 98% certain that I can execute this at an expert level. Let me summarize the plan. I'm going to create a master folder structure. I'm going to sort and move every file from the dump folders into an appropriate chapter or auxiliary folder, renaming the files for clarity as I go. I'm going to create 2 indexes. I'm going to create multi-chapter, or for multi-chapter materials, I'm going to play it in the primary chapter, and then I'm going to leave the original dump folder intact in case you want to verify later, right? Then it asks me what I want to name the folder, and I say I want you to call it 2627 AP European folder, and it says perfect. I'm now ready to proceed. And so it's giving me an update here of everything it's doing. Good, let me create a comprehensive inventory of the files in the dump folder. This is a large collection. It then kind of mocks me a little bit. Wow, this is 1,823 files. This is substantial, which I think it's kind of its way of saying, there's so many files here. What will I do? But it's now organizing these, right? Let me update the status. For those of you who've used Claude Cowork before, you know, in the upper right-hand corner, it makes a little to-do list and then starts to proceed towards to-do list planning for what it's doing. And then sometime later, it said done. Okay. And now it's created 20 chapter folders, 4 auxiliary folders. It is taken the 1,800 plus files and put them away and created 3 index folders for me, right? So here's what that looks like, right? Here's the chapter folders, right? You go into a chapter folder. It's broken everything down by audio, documents, images, other presentations, video. In this case, I'm going to go to documents, and it's renamed everything, right? So that I know what's in the file. Right. So it's much better than the stuff that was called stuff. Right. Okay. So that's cool. Right. That alone is an extraordinary assistance to someone that's, you know, blowing off 16-year-old files and trying to reorganize for a class. But I took it one step further. By the way, here's the index file it created with all this information. But I want to go a step further. In this particular case, the AP European history test has evolved dramatically over the last 16 years. I think there have been at least 2 major reboots of this, and the course looks vastly different. This is the 297-page AP European history course and exam description, right? I wouldn't have read this cover to cover 16 years ago, right? So already it's like something I wouldn't do. I also can't imagine, you know, using this book printed out to like check things off and stuff based on files, right? There's just no way. So I give AI a copy of this and I said, it's 16 years since I last taught the course. The change is substantial. Here's the college guide, right, to this. What I'd like you to do is make a comprehensive list by section of materials I have and materials I need to seek or develop. Right. And so it goes back to work again. Right. And you see it kind of working through things. Here's what I'm doing next. Here's what I'm doing next. Here's what I'm doing next. Now let me extract the full unit details from the PDF and create a comprehensive audit document. Now let me analyze what materials you have in comparison to the College Board piece. Right. And then a couple minutes later, it then says done. Right. And it's created a stunning thing for me here, right? The first thing it does is it creates this is a new thing in AP European history, that there's these themes or theme codes that it goes throughout the time. It also does an organization of the time periods. There's also a thing called skills, which is also a new thing in AP European history, right? So theme audit, skills audit, and then it created this markdown document for me that is the curriculum audit, right? Your archive contains substantial teaching material spanning all 9 AP units with particularly strong resources for Unit 7 on 19th century perspectives and political developments, Unit 8 on 20th century global conflicts. Critical gap areas include contemporary Europe, which is not a surprise to me, explicit primary source collections aligned College Board skills, scaffolded practice materials for historical thinking, yada, 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 right? But it goes into deep detail on this. For example, Unit 3 is absolutism and constitutionalism, right? The themes that are covered are this. It's about 10 to 15 of the pieces of the exam. It shows me what materials I already have, right? And then gives me a breakdown of what is high priority materials to either acquire or develop. It gives me a suggestion of primary source documents I need to collect for this particular unit. And then it breaks it down into high priority, medium priority, low priority, right? Again, stunningly useful, right? And and this is, I mean, it's basically it went through the College Board stuff and created a checklist, and then it just looked in my files, which had previously organized, and just checked them right off. Okay. Now, one last thing. In fact, I even put it that way. Okay, last thing. Starting next Monday, I have 7 weeks to get the class prepared. Please create a detailed guide for breaking down tasks to get this course up and running. Include a weekly schedule for me on what to revise and develop in the next 7 weeks. Please front load the schedule for the first 4 weeks because I'll have more time the next 4 weeks than I will the 3 weeks after. And by the way, here is my school calendar for the year. I'd like to be through the curriculum completely by mid-April so we can focus on test review, use your best judgment on how long things will take based on the College Board guide, and create a proposed class calendar for me, right? So it digs into it, right? And then it says done, right? So the first thing it created for me is a 7 week plan. There is an error immediately in the plan because it thinks that July 14th is a Monday. It was a Tuesday. But of all the things it can screw up on, that seems relatively minimal to me, right? And there's checklists here, right, of what you need to do next, right? This is a week by week at a glance calendar of what it thinks I should be breaking down the class to be. And remember, it has my first semester, the year long school calendar, right? So it knows what week is semester testing because that has already been factored into it, right? And this is the daily breakdown of what it estimates I'll be doing. So on Thursday, August 29th, I have no idea if August 29th is a Thursday, but it's a Thursday. That we're going to cover topics 1.3 and 1.4 on the limits of the power of monarchies, medieval versus early modern state structures, role of church and emerging secular thought. The primary sources that we should look at on this day are medieval feudal agreements and early modern political theory excerpts. The homework is a short practice, short answer practice question, and then we're focusing on the thinking skills. Right? Again, I wouldn't just then say this is my lesson plan for the year, but this is so much more customized so that I can do that very detailed planning that I would want to put into this, right? I'm the only person that's going to teach this in any school I'd be at. Most schools, teach 1, 2, 3 sections of this. It's not, I would have colleagues to work with here. I am by myself, right? And the total time from the beginning of this to complete organization plus plan, 47 minutes.
Wow.
And I cannot begin to describe how long it would have taken me. Well, first of all, I would have never done that with 1,850 files, right? There's a reason why I called half of those stuff is because I was a terrible organizer of those things. The fact that it's able to do that for me, I think is stunning. And I have no problem having AI do the first version of this, right?
Yeah.
Right? And I can spend my time doing the stuff that really matters, which is planning an excellent course for the students I'm serving. So that's what I wanted to show off tonight because co-work is a different way of looking at AI. It's agentic AI. It can do things on your behalf. I actually like it when it asks me questions, so I don't just send it off on ambiguous tasks because it always does a better job when it knows my context, right? But this is what we're talking about with agents, right? Is that it can do things for you that, I wish we all had a para or a personal assistant that can help us with some of these clicky tasks. But that, isn't happening. So instead, have your robot intern do this. And I think that's just a much better model.
So a couple thoughts, and I'm glad we've gone over time, but this is well worth it. I'm going to have 4 different classes, 4 preps this year, and that is going to be a challenge. 3 of these classes I have been teaching for the past 4 years, and we started 3 years ago to use Canvas, and so I have all of the iterations because I have created my own curriculum for these classes, and so one of the things that this makes me think of is the value of not only having your own stuff, but having access to open content like open
Yes.
textbooks or a PDF copy of your textbook, and being able to ingest that into the AI so that it can process it and integrate it in the way that you want it to. But the other thing, and this is real specific for me as I get ready to go back to school next Wednesday in a week, is, I have a new broadcast media curriculum and Canvas course to create. I have been working this summer basically in brainstorming and collecting a few resources, but, I got to get this together. And I'm going to use Claude Cowork. And it's going to be interesting because I've been using Claude so much on my personal account. It knows me really well. And I was looking at it. I guess I've signed up for and been verified for Claude Teachers, but I haven't set up like my classroom profile. Well, I'm going to ask my own personal Claude to create my profile because it already knows me really well because I've been creating a lot of lessons and doing a ton of work in there. But it'll be interesting to see what Claude Cowork will come up with. And also when it comes to tokens, and I'm not going to go on here for too long, but I did take the Pod Commons project, which is far and away the most complicated vibe coding thing I've ever done. And when I had access to Fable, which is, I guess, the consumer version of Mythos, which we didn't get into some of those security articles that are mind-blowing about ways it's autonomously hacking and doing just crazy stuff. Anyway, it was able to identify and solve some problems and do some real sophisticated stuff. So anyway, I'm excited. I appreciate you sharing this demo, and I think that this has, if you're not paying attention to this as especially a curriculum person or someone who's involved in the writing and the creation of curriculum, what you just said about making the first draft, creating the first iteration of this, because again, we don't need binary thinking. I don't think either of us are offloading all of our responsibilities and our thinking to the AI. What I think we're doing is using it as an incredibly powerful assistant and being able to handle enormous amounts of unstructured data and information, being able to help us process that and repurpose that and just do it in mind-blowing ways. I mean, this is a transformative use of technology through AI. So
Yeah. And I just have no problem with this, right?
oh my
Like, I
gosh.
think there are a lot of things that are I think, sketchy uses of AI, and I think we've talked about this, but I still remain pretty skeezed out about AI grading. Not that there isn't a component of that I think could be useful, but if you're farming all your grading out to AI, then why do we need you, right?
Yeah,
Like, I think
sure.
that's absolutely has to be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
But and in your example with new classes that you're teaching and the number of preps that you're teaching, a small school teacher in Montana can sometimes have just 6 or 7 preps.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And if it's not your area,
Even
why
if it
not?
is, yeah, it just absolutely. All right, well, let's geek of the week it, sir. I'll go first. This is a very interesting product, and I actually learned this from my social media blue sky friend Steve. Anyway, I should give a shout out to him. This is called Vellum Proof. And the headline here is your novel entered into evidence. Vellum Proof binds every draft, timestamp, and writing session into a sworn, tamper-evident record of your manuscript. So when anyone asks whether a human wrote your book, the proof is already on
Oh,
file.
interesting.
And so there's a blog post, and this website, I probably should share it because it's so cool. And I just need to find out more about how this website was even created. I'm going to guess it's vibe coded. But check this out. This is his blog. And so the headline of this post is, I'm scared a stranger will call my novel AI. So I built GitHub for Words, which is
Oh,
now
wow.
called Vellum Proof, formerly RidHub, LOL. And so, and even, isn't this website so cool? And so
Yeah,
this is the
it's
person
yeah.
who's writing fiction, but it's just awesome, awesome, awesome. And I think that's a real powerful tool. Okay, and my last one. This is my favorite vibe coded thing I did this summer. I taught a class on vibe coding AI tools vibe coding mini games for middle schoolers. So Trail Typers. This is a merge of a live game that I basically typing head to head against each other in the class to race, but then making it Oregon Trail. So, and this works as a hosted game, and it's a single HTML file that you download. There's nothing to install.
Nuts.
You guys just open it up locally. You don't even have to put it on the server. I do have it running on GitHub. So anyway, you can travel alone. You can put in your name. Go ahead and get going. And let's hit the trail. And so you can give it custom words, but it's all going to be Oregon. Shoot, I just blasted out of it. Anyway, you're going to race to Oregon, and it's going to have the icons here across the top of the screen showing. And those of us that, back in the day were Oregon Trail folks. Oh, shoot. I just kicked Jason out of the chat. No, I didn't. Sorry. I'm getting so excited because, all right, folks, it's about time to end the show. I thought I kicked you out of the whole thing. I took you off the stage.
Yeah.
All right, I love Oregon Trail. It's so fun. I could talk more about this, my summer classes with kids, but that creating mini games with AI was really, really amazing. I had some students create some very compelling things. And this is just the beginning. So anyway, I'm going to use that with my kids. It's free on GitHub. Again, it's just a single HTML file. And you can have your whole class head-to-head racing to successfully, make it to Oregon from St. Louis, practicing their keyboarding skills. Okay, you're Geek of the Week, sir.
Yeah, I'm not going to beat that. So, because you just dropped a vibe-coded Oregon Trail typing game on us. But I do want to share something that this is extra nerdy, but I heard this video. I actually been doing a lot of driving the last 72 hours around the beautiful state of Montana, but I learned about this from one of the YouTube creators that is kind of in the open source AI space. But there is this interesting tool called Osmatic, which I would not install on your machine. What I do is if you've got a spare laptop sitting around, or you can do a virtual machine, and I see in your eyes that you were going to talk about spare laptop for me. But this is what I would install on here, and it actually is about local models, right? And it can figure out how much, like it based on experience and also some analysis of your machine, it can figure out which local models work on your even relatively modest machine, downloads the right model, and then sets up inference stations and the ability to chat with it via a common interface. And so if you are in the experimental stage around AI, and you want to start kind of feeling around what local models can do, you can even run Hermes agent on a laptop based on a local model. And so, again, extra nerdle with a side of nerdle, but and some nerdle sauce for dessert. But still, if you want to do something in this regard, that's a good interesting place to start.
Awesome. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have just set a record for the longest EdTech Situation Room in the history of the show. But you know what? We're not going to charge you extra, and we're not going to make anything extra for it either. But it was awesome, Jason, to see the demo. So when you are not here sharing amazing demos and pontificating and sometimes ranting, where can folks find you?
Hey, best place to find me is probably on LinkedIn, where I'm arguing with people about whether or not Hank Green should be canceled or not. And you can also find my website at aicentrist.com. And you, Dr. Fryer.
Awesome. Well, I am lots of places, but wesfryer.com has a pretty decent collection. I'm in the process, by the way, Jason, of migrating off my virtual private server onto Linode, thanks to AI's ability to let me be on the command line and do all kinds of technical server stuff that there's no way I'd be able to do myself. So this has been the EdTech Situation Room for August the 5th, 2026. As Jason said, we're a sometimes every once in a while podcast that aspire to be weekly, and we'll probably be a little bit more back to our schedule, but back to school is busy, and Jason's on the road more than I am. So The way to find out where we are is to follow us. Follow us on Facebook, please, because this is the first time I'm streaming to my own Facebook page because I went over 100 subscribers, and we need to go over 100 subscribers on the EdTech Situation Room to stream live there. But you can check us out on YouTube. You can go to edtechsr.com and get all our subscription links. And we are on Substack. And here a few months ago, we moved off basically to just publish from Substack. And so we publish two places, Substack and YouTube, and it's all good. So thank you all so much for tuning in. We encourage you to stay savvy, stay safe. If you're back to school, good luck. And remember how Claude Cowork can be your buddy. And let's all try to be more like Jason. There you go. That's the ending bumper now.
Peace.